Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm going to episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. I am here with Mr. Blanka Kong, Mr. Esoteric, Mr. Huddle Wolf. No Zeta Kaiser this time around. Hopefully, you'll be around for the next one. So, our topic for this evening will be an Elden Ring topic. You people watching and listening, and this is probably like your 4,000th Elden Ring video, but just, make us your 4,001, and I'd much appreciate it. So, this Elden Ring topic is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be talking about favorite bosses or most epic moments. We're going to kind of, talk about a topic that maybe you might have heard of. A lot of people are coming into Elden Ring. This is a brand new, really hyped up From Software release. And in our small group, we're going to bring it in for a second. Most of us have played Souls games. In this panel currently, me, Kong, and Esoteric have played most, if not all, of the Souls games, ranging from Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and now to Elden Ring. But Wolf has traditionally not cared for these games much. He respects them for what they are, what they bring, but they were never his cup of tea. That's fine. You're allowed to not like a game. But recently, he's been looking at Elden Ring, and it's piqued his interest. And quite recently, when he was visiting Mr. Esoteric, he actually got hands-on experience with Elden Ring. And that's what this topic is going to be about. We're going to, Wolf is going to tell us his experience with the little bit of Elden Ring that he's played, what he thinks about it, and then, it's going to branch off maybe into a topic about, if someone who's traditionally not liked the game but is competent in video games. Is Elden Ring really this impossible wall to scale that some would have you believe? So we're gonna start it off with the man himself, Mr. Huddle Wolf, and he's gonna regale us with his brief experience in Elden Ring.
Okay, so thanks for that intro, Gunnar.
No problem.
So typically, when I'll take it all the way back to the beginning with Demon Souls. When that game first came out, I did try it. To be honest, it was almost 10 years ago, if I'm correct. Blanka, I know, would probably have a good memory of the time. Or a little more than 10 years ago.
A little more,
But
yeah.
Demon
So
Souls,
it came
a little
out.
more.
I want to say it was 2009, 2010.
Okay,
2009.
I gave it a shot. There's a lot of things that I felt like the game lacked in. I just felt like it was more work the player was putting in for the reward that they would get back. And my friends, this panel particularly, will always they went with the justification of, the reward you're really getting back is beating this what seems to be impossible or extremely difficult boss. The reward is, that satisfaction of beating them. But for me, the way I play video games, it was never that's not the reward for me. Right? The reward for me was never the fact that I beat the boss and he was really hard. It was more the reward that I usually see is the work and effort I put into my character and how effective my character is at fighting said boss. I just felt like at that time, Demon Souls, regardless of the effort you put into your character, you were weak the whole game through. And that, in my point of view, was never a good reward as a player. Moving on to then, Dark Souls. And Dark Souls, I completely ignored that one. And then Dark Souls 2, I picked it up again. And then I tried. But I went with like a magic-based build. And while that build it made the game phenomenally easier, it just wasn't my cup of tea in terms of, again, the same issues is, you feel extremely weak in the playthrough. But the bosses or the enemies were they were stronger than you. They're always stronger than you. And then there was these little nuances that would happen, like, One example that I constantly use is I'm running around a corner and boom, enemy out of nowhere kicks me. I fall off a ledge and I die. And it's just like that instances like that is I've always considered as a cheap setup to take your currency away from you. That was done intentionally, game design wise, intentionally. It's not like the NPC is programmed to just it was just programmed to just walking, and it just happens to set up that way, just based on the timing of your character running up or down that hill or staircase, and the NPC just happens to be right there at that moment. It feels like it was game design intention to constantly have cheap setups where you would just die and then you'll lose all your currency to build your character. I I've always detested. I just feel like it's just like why. But what I do love about the Dark Souls games or Souls games all across the board is that they've always brought this sense of challenge to the player base that does love them. So for that, I've always given that game that respect. I've never, I don't think people who play Dark Souls games before my experience with Elden Ring were necessarily different, or like I never saw a reason to really backlash at the game. I just figured, this isn't a game for me. There's
Right.
things in the game that I didn't like, so I'll go play games with things that I do like in it, because there is millions and millions of games that I can play. I can walk into any, store that sells video games and I'll find 10 games that I can play instead of me bursting my balls trying to figure out the one Dark Soul game at the moment that was just released, or going on social media and voicing my frustration. I have better things to do than that. So I wasn't the type to do that. I would express my frustration with my friends. That is the circle that we were a part of. They find my frustration to be comedy gold, so they embrace it. I'm pretty sure there were times where it sounded annoying, but it's to the circle of the people that is of that are my friends. So then I didn't see a reason to just go ahead and throw the game at the GameStop employee like, this game is impossible. You sold me a bad video. Like, no, I I chose to buy it. I chose to try it, and I chose to move on from it. So I tried Neo because it was free on PlayStation. My tolerance was but so high. I think I did 20 minutes of the game and then I deleted it. I
Damn.
will never go back to that game. Yeah, I got up to the first boss and it was just like, I said to myself, like, why the fuck am I playing this? Like, what? Like, why am I trying? Like, nah, I'm good. Move on. And then that was it. I ignored everything else. Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3. I ignored everything else. Now come around Elden Ring. There were some things in Elden Ring in the promotion that seemed a little bit interesting. Like the spells, the weapons, the characters seemed to be moving less clunky than normal. It seemed like Elden Ring, I don't know if you guys would agree with me on it, but I feel like Elden Ring definitely does bring in some quality of life changes that
Yeah, big
Dark
time.
Souls did not have.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know,
Absolutely.
and those quality of changes are, while they are there and they're noticeable, during my playthrough in the beginning half of Elden Ring, there were still instances that was like, this is still a Souls game, right? Like there were points where I feel powerful because some enemies I'm killing in one or two shots, whether it was with the magic that I had or the sword that I picked up. But then there were also times where my ass would get humbled real quick. Like this is still a From Software video game, and this game is still designed for you to challenge you. So I was saying one instance where the game humbled me after I beat Margot, which apparently is, for the first boss fight, he's a bit much for some. Um, After I beat him, I'm running around the castle. I'm collecting things, enemies coming by. I'm swinging my sword or throwing my magic. They're dying in one hit. I'm like, this shit is easy. I can get this done real quick. I get into the room. It is dark as hell. I get locked. All I hear is like the door being locked behind me, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And boom, to the my left backside, this knight just bum rushed me with wind. Before my character could even get up, he starts with a flurry of swords, and I died. I didn't even get a chance to assess the situation before I got a game over, and I was just like, "Oh shit! Well, this is Dark Souls." Like,
Yeah, welcome to Dark
like
Souls.
it was like, holy shit! Like, God, relax, okay, calm down. Like, I'm just one person. But again, taking into what everybody has told me, taking into, I guess the maturity of understanding these games is that the game isn't designed to just give you things. It's not. And you do have to work for your reward. And I think what the part of that I never understood about Dark Souls is the fact that the reward, like, it's not about necessarily, well, the reward you can say is beating the boss or beating the really tough enemy, but the reward is really just getting better as you play. That's the real reward. And that's what I started seeing as I was playing Elden Ring, because you know, some of these enemies that I did lose to the second or third time that I fought them was like, wow, he really wasn't that bad after all. It's just there are things that I needed to put in place, memory skills that I needed to use to help me push forward into this victory. So I never really, even now I'm playing, I played the beginning part. It's not the victory that's satisfying for me. It's the the road that I took, or the learning that I had to go through to get to that victory. That's the satisfying part to me right now. And that's why I'm interested in keep playing, because like this game is presenting this I think it's maybe my mindset. Maybe I've grown a little compared to that bratty gamer that I used to be 10 years ago, where if I didn't get my way in the video game, I just didn't want to play it. Versus taking upon an actual challenge and putting my skills to the metal and seeing exactly how can I advance with this adversity in front of me. I think that's what changed, and that's why Elden Ring it's really grasping me. Like, I'm really considering in buying my own copy and actually beating the game now.
So, would you say that like the new direction in terms of the game, where Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and so on used to kind of be, I guess, for lack of a better word, a dungeon crawler? You would go from one dungeon location to another with slight variations in the set piece. Some maps would be bigger than others. Some would be, hallway simulators. Would you say that, like, the fact that this is now an open world game with some modern game aesthetics, like fast travel and a mode of transport in the form of torrent, your horse, and the fact that it's an open world game where you can kind of take your time and explore as much as you want, would you say that was an easier mode to get into the game? Was it like less? Because a lot of people say that the fact that the game is open world is overwhelming to them. So, because the game doesn't give you direction where to go, it gives you vague hints on where major boss fights are, but it's kind of leaves it up to you. The moment you get finished with the cutscene, you can kind of do and go where you want. So that might overwhelm some people. But do you say that its open world design is more interesting to you than the traditional Souls template, or is it just solely that you've matured as a gamer and a person to kind of appreciate why people like the Souls games more,
I'm gonna
or a
say it's
combination?
right. It's a combination of both, but the open world aspect to me, I think, is what it's final. I won't say is what Dark Souls should have been in the beginning. I can't say that because I didn't beat and play all the Souls games to say that, right? But I can say is that it's definitely something that I appreciate because what it does allow, again, it goes back to practice. It's that constant practice. Um, so when you're in the actual open field, you believe it or not, the amount of practice that you'll get in just exploring and running into enemies, people don't notice that, right? It's like when playing fighting games, growing up playing fighting games was always go into the practice portion, set the computer to dummy, and then constantly practice combos over and over and over and over and over again. But the real practice in getting better at fighting games, while that is a part of it, the real practice is competing against live people, right? So you go into the lab, as they call it, and you learn your combos. You learn to link, reuse, crouching, medium to Hadoken, but you can do that against a non-moving opponent all day long, and think you're a pro. But then when it's time to actually fight a moving opponent, do you know how hard it is to fight Esoteric's Chun-Li using Ryu? Just trying to get crouching medium into Hadoken. But that's the actual practice right there. The actual practice is I'm now fighting a competent person with a moving character. How am I going to get my combos out? Right? The same thing with with the Elden Ring is, yeah, I can go into the dungeon, well, I can just follow the straight story, but exploring the outworld, the world of Elden Ring, exploring it, running into random enemies, running into little things that you find, little, like these all these hidden secrets. It's making you better at the game because all those enemies that you just randomly run into, you still have to learn how to dodge. You have to learn how to swing your weapon. You have to understand your build. That like those understandings never change. So the whole open world aspect to me, I think it's one big playground, right?
Okay.
For me, I look at it as one big playground. It's my sandbox. I can build a sandcastle if I wanted to, or I can, you know, I can build a sandcastle. I can build a sand tower. Like I can just mold it to what I want it to be in a sense because all it really is just that my exploration is just making me better at the game. And to be honest, I've never once summoned torrent. I've ran around the open world on foot. I never once summoned the horse. Now, when I actually play through the game myself, am I not going to summon the horse? No, I'm not going to put myself on that difficulty. Are you crazy? Of course I'm going to summon the horse, but it's just playing the game and seeing the open world. I think there was just an appreciation where I wanted to just examine everything, and if I'm on the horse and I'm running, there's things that I'm going to run by or things that I'm not going to notice, and I didn't want to rob myself of that experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
So running on foot to me was way more beneficial. Running into random enemies that's just sitting there and it's like, okay, is he hostile? Is he not hostile? Should I approach him? Can I sneak up on him? What is he going to do next? Like all of that starts to play in your mind, but it makes you a better player because, again, it goes to, well, can my build take this enemy? Can I use magic on this enemy? It starts to make you realize that this is a thinking game. It's not like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry where it's just triangle, 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 triangle. No, this is a thinking game. You have to think on everything you do from how you spend your currency. You take a risk on any enemy that you fight because you could lose your currency. Um, how you're going to build your character moving forward because I believe that there's only specific parts where you can respec. I don't think you can just respec at your own free will. Maybe I'm wrong. Um,
In order to respec, you have to defeat a specific boss at a certain point in the game, and there are limited items that allow you to do it. And once you use up those items, that's it for that playthrough. You can get them back in a new game plus. So you are
Yeah.
right. You can respec, but there's a limited amount of times you can do it.
Right. So that means that respecing is still something that, so building your character is still something that you have to take into consideration, because you can't just go ahead and respec your overall build. Again, it's just like having the open world. I think I understand that it's overwhelming because people look at the map and then they say, I have to see everything. I have to go through everything. I would imagine that you don't have to. But I would imagine that you would want to, so that you can see what this game has to offer, so that you can get better at this game. Practice isn't something that you conscious. Getting better at something or practicing isn't. It's not always straight up direct. It's sometimes it's subconscious, not always conscious. Sometimes it's subconscious. Sometimes it's in the back of your brain is doing it. Your muscle memory is getting better. Your understanding is getting better. You, as the player, just don't realize it. And that's why I feel like open world, I think, does better for Elden Ring, instead of it being like dungeon to dungeon to dungeon, as it was in the older games. I just think that people have this, like general people have this idea that because it's open world or sandbox, that they have to see everything and they have to go through everything. Like, you don't really have to. You use that new space to um to pretty much get better understanding of what that game is, because the enemies in the dungeons to me are harder than the enemies on the main field. While I've never ran into, obviously I haven't run into all the enemies on the main field. When I went into the castle, I got a lot more challenge than I got when I was, on the open world on my way to the castle. So again, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's just the way that I saw it.
They have different scales
Yeah,
to
yeah.
them. But to your point, Wolf, pertaining to like the open world, I'm only speculating, but I feel that the reason why people are overwhelmed with it is due to the fact that Elden Ring does minimal hand holding. So like, with traditional games that are open world, you have like you have something that kind of points you in the correct direction of where to go, how to acquire certain things. They give you like certain missions listed on the side. Like, I'm thinking more so about Horizon Forbidden West, because that was the most recent one
Like
I've
the
played.
Spider-Man game. The Spider-Man
Yeah,
games will give you direction on what to do and where to go.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And in Elden Ring, it's not like that. It's more so like, okay, well, you have free reign to go wherever you want to go. I think it's a double-edged sword, because Elden Ring doesn't give you information that most people would sort out for, regarding how to navigate the map. However, on the other side of the blade is you have more options, as opposed to traditional Souls games where, like, if you're stuck at this particular point, you have to overcome it. There's no other way around. Like, you have to deal with this situation if you want to progress to the next area of that said spot. Um, so I think what it is that, okay, you pretty much have to worry about all these different things within the map, but at least you have the option to, like, say, well, I can't beat this enemy right now. Let me pivot and see if there's something more tolerable, work my way up the ranks, and then come back to this other enemy at a later date. So
Yeah,
I
I
agree
think
with.
that. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that I think that
Mhm.
was a roadblock for a lot of people, because in the previous Souls games, everything was kind of linear, for lack of a better word. It was
mhm,
it, it was kind of linear. So like you would start off at a particular whatever's your home base for that. Then you would move on to the next area, fight a major boss there. move on to the next area, explore, fight a major boss, so on and so on. They obviously had deviating paths like side paths. So if you were having trouble with a particular boss, there was no let me go somewhere else for the bit, reset myself. Maybe I'll find a different item, or maybe I'll learn something and fight a different boss, and then come back and fight this boss I've been having trouble. Like for Bloodborne, because I play that a lot, so that's fresher in my mind. If you can't beat Blood-Starved Beast, which is the first major boss, you can't progress in Bloodborne because you have to beat that boss to progress. So a lot of people who find that difficult, they stop right there and then because they can't get past this wall that's Blood-Starved Beast. Whereas in Elden Ring, if Margit is giving you a hard time, there are whole other areas you can go and maybe build your character up gear wise, spell wise, weapon wise, experience wise, both player experience and character experience, and then come back to Margit and have an easier time with him. So I think that part of that Elden Ring spin makes it a lot less roadblocky for newer players. At least that's how I've looked at it.
I think, and that's what I think is that if you've tried Dark Souls games in the past and didn't like it or couldn't play it because of how the game was built, but then you want to try Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring is a good game to try because of that specific reason. Is that it's opportunity, and it gives you options, right? It gives you opportunity to continue to play the game even though you cannot beat this boss, but then it gives you options on where you want to go next, on how you're going to, or give you the options on how you're going to, what's going to be your road plan or your game plan to go back to that boss and conquer them, or go back to that area and conquer that area. And I think that is From Software's way of saying, look, this is how you change the difficulty of your game. Instead of it being straightforward where you press start, open menu, easy, hard, impossible, and then you select easy because normal mode was too hard for you. No, the easy mode is okay, let's go back. Let's retrack what I did, how I'm built. Let's fight some enemies that I can beat. Let's build upon some runes or currency. Let's spec my character to be a little bit better, and then let's go back and try that fight again. And with it having an open world aspect to it, it allows players to do that. I just think people prefer to complain first before finding a solution. And obviously the game gets backlash for that. But that was my conclusion. Like the last thing I did was near the end of the castle. And one of the harder enemies I did fight was a knight who was, more of those knights that would rush you with the wind shields and pretty much block everything you throw at them during that mid rush. But what I realized is that there is a set distance that they rush at. I also realized that they rush in a very straight line. So if you set that point, or the way I imagined it or broke it down in my mind is, okay, the knight sees me. The first thing it's going to do is rush me. I'm its beacon of where it's going to stop, because now it's starting to rush. Because because it's going to stop where my character is currently standing. Move out of the way. Once it starts its rush, where my character was standing is the beacon of where it's going to stop. Simply roll backwards, roll sidewards, or time your dodge so that the shield is invincible. So you have invincibility frames to the shield. And once I realized that, after losing to the same damn knight 4 or 5 times because he wants to have ads with him as well, once I realized that, the fight became infinitely easier. It's like I just took away all the difficulty in that in that monster's setup. And it's the learning aspect of it, right? So having that open world, being able to say, okay, I can't beat Market right now. I need to go back
Right.
and reevaluate my player skills. That allows you the practice for you to understand, what are you doing wrong as the player? What is your character missing? And even you can even go and find an item that keeps Margit pinned for like the first 20 seconds of the fight if you wanted to, if you was willing to put in that effort. You do have to fight another boss monster, but why should the game just give you that item for free? Right? They still got to be some level of adversity you have to face because the item you're getting is to shut down a story-based boss. Right? So it does make sense that you do have to fight a side boss for it. But again, I feel like as I played the game more and more and more, I'm starting to see that the game gives you things that you need to win, but you have to realize it. It's not going to say, "Hey, use this," or "Hey, do this." It's not one of those video games where you lose to the boss 4 or 5 times and then they give you a tip. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
um but I do agree with Esoteric in terms of the map. I do feel like the map could have been a little better to understand the terrain so that you know how to traverse. Like when I was there and I was watching him play, we was trying to get to this one point in the map and it was like, how the frig you get there? He teleported here, he teleported there. We was just like, how the hell you get there? And I don't know if he's ever figured it out, but it just didn't make sense on how you get to that area because the way that the map has it, at some point it seems like you could just jump down the cliff. You could just jump down the cliff and you're there. But when you get to the cliff, it's too high to jump. Then it seems like there's a main road you can go to and just walk the main road to get to there. But then when you get to that main road, there's a mountain half cutting off the road halfway through. And it was just like, how the hell you get there? Like it just I think we burnt like what, an hour and a half trying to figure it out, Esoteric?
Yeah, we did,
Um,
and I actually did figure it out. I don't know if
mhm.
the game threw this at me. It could have been like a slight thing that I didn't read or whatever. So I didn't realize that the wind that you use with the horse to elevate you and propel you to like higher terrain,
Mhm.
it actually works in reverse as well. So if you jump into that wind and you land, you're safe from dying. So that's how I went to that area
Oh.
with all like the poison. It's kind of like I don't know if Kong or Gunnar remembers this area, but it's kind of like a little fort that's in between a valley and it's like a cesspool full of like poison and stuff. I think that was where I fought that night boss. I forgot its name, but it was a
Oh,
knight that was
it's
there.
near Volcano Manor, if I
Yeah, it's
remember
kind of like
correctly.
close to there. It's like a cesspool dungeon like fort area. So what I had to do was, and I did this by accident because I was like fighting some enemy and there was like a wind there and I ended up falling off the cliff trying to fight on the horse. And then I was safe from the jump and I was like, wait a minute, it works in reverse. And I was like, okay, well, let me see if there's any like wind tunnels that I can utilize to land there. And then that's essentially how I got to that area. So
Mhm.
it was like luck, but at least I utilized that information and applied it to other areas within the map. So
There you go. But that's what I think is what I'm going to start to give Dark Soul games a little more credit for is that they everything that you do up until whatever point that you get stuck at, it's constantly teaching you. Like you're constantly being taught not to overestimate yourself. You're constantly being taught not to underestimate the enemy. You're constantly being taught that these are tactics. Everything the boss before you is preparing you for the next boss, right?
yeah,
Knowing how to dodge, getting better weapons. If the first boss you fought was a struggle for you because your character wasn't dealing enough damage, I mean, common sense would say gear up because there is the next boss. And that's the mentality you should want to go with until you start seeing credit scenes. When you start seeing the credits of the video game, then you end that logic. But your logic should always be your logic should always be, I fought this boss, gear up for the next boss, because there is a next boss. And
Well,
that boss will be harder.
well,
you
here's
know?
here's the thing. Like I feel like there's two common misconceptions of the Souls games, right? And I think the reason why these misconceptions occur is because of how the game is created. So with the simple fact of your currency, like losing your currency you at one point in the game, and you have to go back to that same spot to acquire your currency, and if you do not, you lose everything. I think that messes with players mental, because it kind of forces you to play a little bit safer than you normally would, because you're losing a whole lot more. Like you feel as if you're losing everything, so to speak, which in some cases is true. But while playing, the Souls games, I began to learn that your runes, your souls, your blood echoes, it isn't the be all end all of your character development. So you have to take risks in order to like do what you need to do to progress to the next thing. You have to like figure shit out, take risks, sometimes think outside of the box in order to get to the next place. I think the second misconception would be the fact that everybody, mostly everybody, would consider your currency within a Souls game your soul exp. And again, that's not the be all end all, because while you're fighting a boss and you're constantly losing against said boss, you're still gaining exp in a way, because you're learning that boss fight, you're learning what you have to do. you know um the more you play something and you analyze, and you're not just throwing in the towel, so to speak, the more you get better at it. I was just last night, I was fighting Melicanth, which most people would know who've played and gotten to a far point in Elden Ring. Um, I played against that boss with a basic build. I didn't have no magic. I'm using pretty much strength and dexterity, running around with the meteoric ore blade, and that's essentially all I used. And I got my ass handed to me countless times. I'm pretty sure it's well over the 50s, but I was able to beat him last night. And what I did was I took all that knowledge of learning the fight, staying alive, not attacking right away, just watching his movements to determine what I should do next. And I compiled all of that into my mental database and was like, okay, this is what I have to do moving forward. It took a while, but eventually I got to the point where I was victorious. And I feel like that's a part of the overall experience of these Souls games. The potential to grow not only your character, but as an overall player. I feel like the things that you learn within these Souls games are applicable to other games that you do play, you know? So,
Remember when I would fight some of the monsters, when you was watching me play, I would scream, "That's because I play Monster Hunter, bitch." This is like
exactly, exactly.
but it's because I took this, in Monster Hunter, not to diverge off of Dark Souls, off of Elden Ring, but in Monster Hunter, it's similar logic. It's you have to learn the monster, and you have to learn that the monster it's not programmed to give you just wide openings. It's programmed to beat you, and that's what it's gonna do. It's gonna follow its programming, and it's the same thing with the Elden Ring bosses now. Some Elden Ring bosses just don't stop. They just don't stop. And it's like, my God, I can only take 2 hits from you, but they're throwing out 6, 7, 8 hit combos on you. And it's like, this is ridiculous. But again, it's the practice of it and understanding what your character limitations are and what kind of boss you're fighting. And I think that is something that constantly needs to be in play of in your head when you're playing these games. I think that there are things that Elden Ring or From Software games should still have in terms of like quality of life things? Of course. But I'm now starting to understand and see that it's really not it's really not. It's not an impossible game. It's not easy. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh yeah, I played the first part of Elden Ring," and to be honest, it's a lot easy. It's easy. It's not that hard of a game. No, it's a hard. It's a hard fucking game. That game will kick your ass. Period. It will kick your ass, but it's not. It's not impossible. You know, we're not. The game isn't asking you to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. it's it's not
Right.
impossible. It's there. You just have to be cognitive of the of your of what you're experiencing within that game and what experiences you dealt with up to that game.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some videos where some boss monsters are repeating, right? Like some you'll fight, like when we talked about the gargoyle earlier. There's like 5 or 4 of them in the overall game with that share similar move sets. That's repetition. That that's experience. And then there's other bosses that are designed to look the same or move the same, but may have 1 or 2 different moves from the type of boss that you fought earlier. So again, it's like, okay, well, I fought this before. What did
Right.
I do to beat this boss? Go back to that. That should be your first strategy. What did you do to beat this boss? Then your second strategy is, okay, well, I lost to this boss because it provided a new technique or something else about it that I couldn't foresee, because what you don't know is what you don't know. So if you do lose to that tactic, now you have that education. Okay, I fought this boss before. This is how I fought him. This is how I beat him. But this move is giving me a hard time. So, break down the fight. Become a little analytical about your situation. There are some people who don't need to be that way because, they use magic. Like, I intend to do a magic build, but I also found that in Elden Ring, which I found to be very cool, is you can be magic build with swords. And I was like there
Yes.
is
Yeah.
like I was like, oh, that's intriguing, because like I can get up in the enemy's face, but that whole magic aspect is still there. Or I can switch to a staff if I wanted to and go long range. And honestly, that's the kind of build that I definitely see myself playing as when I play the game fully on my own. But then even magic users have bosses that they have to still think, because magic doesn't work on everything. So, there's still these points where you're still going to have a hard time um, with certain things, regardless of your bill. I just think that maybe a lot of people, they want it, they want their rewards to be given to them. They want gaming experience, not gaming challenges, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think I
That
think
makes
that's
perfect
where a
sense.
lot of Elden Ring's criticism comes from.
Yeah. It's always about they just want to experience the world but not appreciate it, and they just want to down the boss but not put in the work, so to speak, to beat said boss, learn said boss. And yeah, you're
Mm,
100%
Yeah.
correct. Like the way you tackle the game is different for everyone. Like I would see Esoteric because he's streaming Dark Souls, Elden Ring currently, and I would see moves of a boss that I never saw before. I'm like, this guy can do that? He can lower your max HP and deal a dot damage to you? That's wild, because I never saw him do that. So like
mm,
every experience is different because of how I play, how Kong played, how you play, how
mm,
Esoteric plays. Everybody plays differently, and that just culminates in different experiences. And that's always been a selling point of the Soul series. But it's just Elden Ring allows people to just experience different chunks of the game at their own pace because it's inherently open world, and in no particular order. You can beat it and play it in any order you want. There are certain story triggers that you have to accomplish, but you can play it in any order you want, fight any boss in any order you want, and have a vastly different experience. And
Yeah.
some people, that's not how they operate. That's not how they've been for lack of a better word, trained to operate in a video game. So, whereas when you, Wolf, see this as a challenge, and it's like, all right, how I'm going to approach this, they see it as an obstacle. And some of these people just can't pass that obstacle. They can't get over it. So,
Yeah, I kind of feel like people who play like that, they're subconscious gamers, you know, like they're just playing just to play, not to take in or absorb any information. They're just going through the motions of playing a game. And if there's something that kind of uh stops them in their tracks and there's no more movement for a while, that's when they're like, okay, well, this game is trash, it's too hard, it's too difficult. Whereas I would say with us, we're more conscious. We're looking at how the game plays from an analytical perspective, how bosses fight, what kind of build you want. We're setting the tone and the pace for how we're going to venture out in the future of this particular game. So I think that's the difference between like people who, and of course, there's let me not say that there's people who just don't have the patience to play it, like they just don't feel like playing it, because there are people like that, or it's not their cup of tea. Um but I feel like it's more of a subconscious play style versus a subconscious conscious
Yeah.
subconscious, yeah. I didn't know which one I said first. um
No,
but
like
yeah.
I had a customer that came in, and he's also a gamer, and he was telling me, yeah, I gotta play Elden Ring, I gotta play Elden Ring, and I told him my experience with Dark Soul games, and it was like, listen, it's just not for me, okay? I don't feel like randomly dying to some cheap trap, because it was just put in the game, and he was like, listen, all they do is take your currency. They don't take anything else from you. You don't lose anything else. What more can you lose once you lose your currency? All it is just you getting good. That's it. And and that resonates with me because, again, once I let go the fact that there is, that I'm carrying around this currency that I can lose if I get a game over. Once I let that hold of animosity that I had against the Soul series games because of how that is set up, it was like, that is absolutely true. Like, no matter how much times I've lost, I never miss the currency because it's like, well, I'm just gonna get it back. I'm gonna. Chances are the
Yeah.
boss that took the currency from me is gonna give me back more currency than I was holding anyway.
Not like
And
playing a rogue game, because if you was playing rogue, if Dark Souls or Elden Ring was rogue, yeah, then I would
yeah, you lose
completely.
everything. You lose your equipment and everything. Like, you don't want to die at all. But the boss, chances are, is going to give you more currency than what you were carrying on you. I would like to think that you, as a cognitive player, is using your currency so you don't lose everything. Like, some things, you still you still have currency on you, but that's probably currency you couldn't spend. Chances are. And I also like the fact that the game gives you this abundance of items that you can trade in for runes.
all right,
And
yes.
right, and that's a quality of life that I really and truly appreciate because I know Esoteric fought this one boss that the horse boss. He was on the horse. This man lost to the he was on that boss fight for like 40 minutes. And he lost what? Maybe 18,000 souls, was it, or something like that? Roughly
To
that. He died.
try
So
80.
yeah, it was 80, right? So he died and lost the ruins. That's it. He lost the money. The boss, after he beat him, gave him about 50,000. He walked into the castle that the thing was protecting, or the building that the thing was protecting. He found the treasure chest, and it gave him a rune item that he can sell or just activate, and it gave him another 50,000. So in the end of the day, he lost 80,000 runes, but beating the boss and finding the item, that was 100,000 total if he had used the item. So it's like, did he really lose? Like, did he
Yeah.
did he really lose? That's that eye opener. That's just like, you're stepping into a new realm now, and when you look at it from a different perspective, shit becomes a lot more tolerable. Not easy, but tolerable.
Right, when you know the rules
Mhm.
of the game and you get like this is how things operate, then losing like the example you mentioned, losing 80,000 souls after a while, it's just like, eh, it's unfortunate, but oh well. Like
Yeah,
you get over that real quick because you realize you'll just earn that by simply playing the game.
that's it. Just simply playing the game, and keep in habit. Spend your wounds.
But if it's starting to accumulate and you're getting a little nervous, this
Yeah,
doorway looks a little bit too open, looks like a boss room. Go back to your last grace point, spend them. If you can't level them, just buy fucking items with it or something. Just get it out the way. That way, you run into the boss and he one shots you. No harm, no foul. I lost nothing of value.
Yeah. Or if I'm not mistaken, they have these like these point redemptions where you could use in the form of talismans, and if you equip them on you, I mean, this is what I read in the description. I never actually used them. But if you were to put them in place of a talisman, if you die, you would essentially raise back up with your runes intact. I've never used it, but from what I read in the description, that's what it seems to do. So
The
they give
sacrificial twig. I've used it. It does work, and you can
okay,
purchase it from merchants.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're
So
one-time use. So
yeah, they break afterwards. I think they have a couple of other they had like items like that in previous Souls
yeah,
games, but they
just
do give you
yeah.
opportunities to make mistakes, you know.
Again, even then, like you're constantly earning ruins or souls. You're constantly earning currency. You're never gonna be zero all the time. So just keep trucking because death is a part of the game,
Yeah.
and you know once you get to like the end point of the game, you got enemies dropping 10k souls per kill. You fretting over that 80k that you lost in the first 40 hours of the game. It's gonna seem trivial because now this guy's giving me 10 per kill. So it's just like, but you have to
yeah.
get to that point to even have that realization. And for some people, Margit
I
is the beginning and end of their Elden Ring.
I think if you are, I think if you're going to play this game, if you are really going to get up, whether you download it or you go to your local video game store and spend $65 to $70 on this video game, don't do it because and Blanca did give me this as advice to playing Elden Ring. Don't do it because your friends are doing it. Don't spend the $70 just because all your friends in your circle is playing Elden Ring. Don't spend $70 because you see a lot of YouTube videos of people kicking ass in Elden Ring or talking how amazing it is. Because in the end of the day, if you do spend that $70 and it's a game that you yourself as a person know you cannot play or that you are not willing to learn the game, then Blanca said it to me. He's like, Wolf, you're gonna be wasting your money. You're not gonna want to play. So why waste the money? And why do it now when you can wait a little bit down the line when it's a little cheaper, or like they get all the bugs and updates out of the way, and then you play the game. Um, so that's why when I went to spend the weekend at Esoteric, I took that opportunity to demo whether I can play this game or not. I consciously was like, Esoteric, let's boot up Elden Ring. I want to play. I want to see what this game really is because I get that experience for free because, he has the game already. And two, I can really test to see where my mindset has gone based on, my growth as a video gamer in general. Um, so I do advise that to people is that just don't spend the money if they're not sure on the game. I I I went ahead and took advantage of someone else who had the game and I played off of a save file, but the game does it does, 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 it does teach you to be, um, it does, it does, it does teach you to be, um, it does, it does, it does, it does, it does, it does, it does teach you to be it does teach you to be patient. But also allows you to be experimentative. You know, there's not a lot of video games actually do that these days. Not a lot at all. And because of that, I think that's where the fun started to really kick in. Um, that's why I feel like the open world aspect is very important, because in the open world it allows you to practice what you have or what you like before you start going on to the main stuff, because the main story stuff is really gonna put your, you know, test your skills to the metal of, you know, what you've been doing in the overworld. And just to have a dragon drop down on you randomly to fight in the overworld, you got to be on your P's and Q's at all times. And it's strenuous, but that, I think, is the, I guess that's the pull, right? That's the magnet.
Yeah, I would say that's
It's
the
like,
appeal. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the appeal, right? Like, oh, okay, well, damn, I just got my ass kicked randomly, you know. But
Yeah, some people are gonna be like, "Ooh, I'm not messing with that dragon again," and others be like, "No, I'm gonna fuck that dragon up and see what it gives me." Different people approach the same creature differently, and that's what.
and you'll get different results.
Yeah, and that's one of the beauties about um, the Souls games, and specifically Elden Ring, because now you have the option to just leave that dragon alone. You don't have to come back to it. So
Yeah, it's definitely a game that I feel like, for someone who's always had this disdain for the Dark Soul type video games, it is a game that's it's a good entry back into it. I think, I hope From Software do, you know, move forward with games like Elden Ring style builds, you know, with the open world, with the options of going where you want, exploring what you want, you know, that amount of um experimentative capabilities. Those are things that I can definitely see myself getting into, and I do intend to buy Elden Ring eventually. I don't know when, but I will buy it and I will play it. Now I'm invested into actually playing this game, and I don't really care about spoilers. I just want to play. It's just
Well,
like,
welcome to the club, friend. It took you long enough. I'll say this one thing, and then we'll wrap up. So Elden Ring, in my humble opinion, someone who's played all the Souls games and the knockoff Souls games like Surge and Lords of the Fallen, Elden Ring is everything that a Souls game is plus more, right? Souls, what makes Souls games great, in my opinion, is the level and opportunity of discovery. That's one of the pulls, is you never know what's going to happen, and that's very exciting. And in today's day and age, modern era, that you don't really get surprises anymore. The sense of mystery is a thing of the past in many cases, and with a game like Elden Ring, it provides that, which is unfortunately a unique feeling. You also mentioned that it's a game about learning, and it's always been a game about learning. That's why it's designed the way that it is. The Elden Ring, the Souls games in general have masterful level design. I mean, the way the worlds are designed to interweave into itself is, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I would go, "Oh wow, I
Agreed.
remember this place," or "Oh, that's where this door leads to." Like that sense of discovery, and it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, like with modern games, you kind of just see things coming. Everything's so linear and like streamlined that it feels like a roller coaster. Like, yeah, it's fun, but like there's no surprise, right? Like it's on rails. It's like it's very controlled. Where Elden Ring, it's not. You are given, I mean, an immense amount of tools with the new crafting system. That's never been done before. And while it is not necessary, it is an option, right? You can go play the game and only use craftable tools if you wanted to. Knives and darts and explosive pots or whatever. Like, you could just play that way if you wanted to. And the game is designed so that you could do that. You could just play with a rusted dagger the entire way. You could just play magic. You could play hybrids. Like, there are dozens of ways you can play this game. And on top of that, the way the map is designed you can go almost anywhere at any point in time,
Yeah.
and there's always something that's gonna pull your attention. You guys mentioned
Yeah.
the swamp lake or something or whatever, and like you couldn't figure out how to get atop of
Yeah.
a certain area, and he eventually figured it out. Right, that's a part of the game, like just figuring things out, and that process of learning how to fight a certain boss, or learning how to use tools differently, learning how to traverse the area, learning how to get to certain places. That shit is rewarding as hell. It feels so good and so fun and engaging, and it's something we don't get too often because modern games now have waypoints and question marks everywhere, and everything is just so. It's
controlled.
It's like back in the day, and here we go. I'm gonna sound like an old guy, but back then we didn't have phones and the internet and GPS, so I can't tell you how many times me and Wolf have gone places and we just went and we just figured it out, right? Whereas today, you pull out your phone, you pull out the GPS app, and you know exactly where to go and how to get there. And that sense of discovery, you're not going to get lost, right? If you get lost with GPS, I mean, you got to be some kind of a different breed of moron. But
that's on you. Yeah.
But back then we didn't have these tools, right? We if we were lucky, we would pull up MapQuest, and maybe be able to print out the directions to some new place that we wanted to check out. So that's what makes Elden Ring so monumental, and to me it's this decade's Skyrim. When Skyrim came out 11 years ago, that game was like what Elden Ring is today. It's a massive game with a ton of options and a lot of depth. And Elden Ring is what Skyrim was 10, 11 years ago. So this game is going to be remembered for a long time as like a game changer, no pun intended. And
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you're finally giving it a chance. Anybody who's listening, who's made it this far, if you're going to play a Souls game, this is the one to play. This is the best Souls game. I would even argue the best game I've ever played. I can't think of a game that truly tops Elden. I can't. Even some of my favorite games. It's just, this game is so good. It's so good in so many different ways. It's so polished. And it's not perfect, but it's fucking close. So, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for a great conversation. It was a good listen. For those listening, if you enjoy the conversation, subscribe. We do podcasts every week, Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We also do 2-minute reviews that publishes every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So check us out. Like the video, comment down below. Let us know what you think. Is Elden Ring an inviting game? Is it the best Souls game? Is it inviting to new players? Let us know your thoughts. We are on social media as well, so we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Links will be in the description. We also have a Discord that will also be in the description, so if you're interested in joining our currently small but growing community, we would be very happy to have you come in. I promise I can speak, I can use words. Lastly, I do stream sometimes on Twitch under Blanka Kong. I usually stream retro games or indie titles, so follow me there to know when I go live. Mr. Esoteric streams on the main channel, Logical Gamers TV, on Twitch. He streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So check him out there as well. Guys, thank you very much. Have a good night. Catch you in the next one.
It is.
Bye.